Hello and welcome, everybody. This is Blown Up episode 56. Yep, damn right. We're back with an English speaking episode. My name is, of course, Robert Dreisker, and joining me again, my beautiful colleague, Felix Shooter Schultz. Hello, Felix. How are you?
Hello, Robert. Hello, dear listeners from all around the world. Happy to be back here in this English-speaking episode of Blown Up, which is, not our usual language, as you probably understand or hear from us, because usually we are speaking German. Now we speak, barely English.
Well, that definitely is right, I would say. But yeah, every now and then we try to speak, that's the right word. We try to speak a little bit with our English guests and friends from around the world. If you haven't heard of us beforehand, you might be interested in going back through our catalog. We had different talks over the years with guys like Dr. Tom Pritchard, PCO, Tyson Dukes, Jeff Cobb, or I think to this date, the one and only podcast from Timothy Thatcher. So if you're new to the Blown Up show, you might be interested in that as well. But now we're looking forward. Felix, what do we have in store for our listeners today?
Well, I think we have a person here with us today as a guest who is, one of a dying breed, as I want to say, like a world-traveled wrestler who's doing this since almost 20 years. We've seen him in WXW for many years. We will see him again in next year's WXW 16 Karat Gold 2022. Jonathan Gresham will be here and talk with us, which is very cool.
Yep, that's absolutely right. Like you just said, he's one of a dying breed, a globetrotter, one guy that has seen a lot of different places throughout the years, and the guy who, I just met a couple of times in the ring, but I met him more often outside the ring. A really cool dude who has had a lot of success in the last few years. And I think let's not waste any more time, Felix. Let's get started with our interview with Jonathan Gresham.
Dear listeners, this is Felix again with a short disclaimer. During this interview, we will talk with Jonathan also about his time in Ring of Honor, and with that, we will naturally have to talk about people who were later mentioned in Speaking Out, having done horrible things to women. As this might be uncomfortable for some of you, we just want to let you know that you might want to skip the last third of this talk. We still hope you will enjoy this wonderful tour through Jonathan's great career. Have fun. So what's your plan for today? It's Friday. It's noon at your place. What's your...
Yeah. I just woke up. Well, not just woke up. I woke up around like 7. Cleaned up the house from like everything that was like in disarray. All the guys that were over. My mom and I are gonna go see a movie in a little bit, and then I'm gonna go to one of my friends in town that he runs a show on the other side of town. So I'm gonna go to that tonight, and that's pretty much my day.
So I have to ask.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Felix.
What movie are you going to watch?
Same question.
It's called King's something. And my mom wants to see it. It's about the Serena sisters, the girls that play tennis.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's about their father. I think it's called King something. So I'm going to see that with her in a little bit here.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, that would have actually been my second question, if your mom is choosing the film, or if it's your choice. John, you recently announced that you're gonna start promoting your own wrestling company called Terminus. Would you like to tell us a little bit about it? Like, how did everything came together? Was this something that you wanted to do for a long time already? What can you tell us about your new project?
Well, first of all, the name Terminus is the old name of Atlanta back in the 1800s. It was in reference to the rail system, the train system, and how goods and different services were delivered to Atlanta and then shipped out to like the rest of the United States. So a lot of different goods and things came through Atlanta and were shipped out. And at the time, the name of Atlanta was actually Terminus. So that's just a cool name that we thought would really resonate, as it is basically saying this is Atlanta. So that's where the name came from, Terminus. But my friend and I, Baron Black, he wrestles for AEW. We've been friends for over 10 years, and we started together pretty much at WWA4, and we always used to talk about running our own shows, because we would do independence together around Georgia and, like surrounding states. And we would always see things that we didn't agree with. And we would always talk about how we would make them better. So it was just talk back then. And then, we graduated to the next level. I actually started to make a living from wrestling. And I thought to myself, I think it's possible for us to run a show. And we started discussing it more and more. And then we realized that, hey, we could just do it if we wanted to. And so we decided to do it. It's a lot of little things that we plan to do differently. A lot of things we plan to focus more so on. But that's pretty much how it came together. It was just since 2012, 2011, we've been talking about running shows, and we just finally decided to do it.
Can you maybe reveal like one or two things? What are those things that you guys are going to do differently, or is it too early for that?
No, the one thing that I really dislike in wrestling, regardless of, when it's not even in wrestling, just in general, if you hire someone to do a job and you reach out to them, they didn't come to you. Why are you asking them to go cheaper on their price? So if a guy comes to me and says, my rate is, I don't know, $5, why would I say, hey man, can you come in for $3? And I came to you. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's something that I want to eliminate, because I hate it when people reach out to me and then I tell them my fee or my rate and then they ask me to go lower. It's just like, dude, you came to me. Let me have what I'm asking for, because this is what I need for life, for my job, to do my job. So that's one thing I want to kind of eliminate, and people won't have to deal with that with Terminus. The other thing is really giving people that have been out on the independents, really hustling and like working hard and still can't figure out where that break is going to come from. I want to kind of help, shed light on these talents that are having a difficult time. I feel like for a long time, nobody wanted to give me an opportunity. It was like little pockets here and there throughout the world that invested in me. One being WXW, which I'm appreciative of to this day. They always gave me an opportunity and a stage and always gave me good talents to work with. So I want to be that to the independents. What WXW was to me, I want to be that to the independents.
That's actually a super cool idea. I like that. And you called it Terminus and then modern age grappling, right?
Yes.
What do you like? What is your connection with that? Why? What is it? What's the modern part about it? What is the grappling part about it?
Well, every so often, the style of wrestling changes the way I see it. So I want to kind of be ahead of the curve. For a long time there, I thought that pure wrestling, I still do believe pure professional wrestling is the next step. But sometimes something that's old that's being brought back needs to be refurbished. It needs to be evolved a little bit, kind of pushed to the next level. And to me, that's what modern age grappling is. It's the next step in the evolution of pure professional wrestling.
Yeah.
So for me, without going into super deep detail, you're going to really get a little bit of everything. I think my favorite parts of all of these different psychologies and philosophies towards booking wrestling and, wrestling psychology are going to be squashed together to create modern age grappling. So when you think about, King's Road, when you think about strong style, when you think about the pro wrestling Noah Arc style, when you think about the American way of the entertainment style of wrestling, when you think about the Mount Everest rules of World of Sport, all of these things are going to be squashed together to create modern age grappling.
So does it have like a special rule set? Like, I don't know, like for example, Battle Art set or Ambition with WXW, or is it in the traditional frame of professional wrestling as it is at the moment?
See, that's getting a little too deep.
Oh.
That is something that people have to buy a ticket for and find out for themselves.
Fair enough.
Are tickets on sale already?
Yes, they are. On Terminus, terminustickets.com is the Eventbrite link, and you can also follow Terminus at Terminus Pro on Twitter. So that's what we're doing right now. We're pushing our tickets. We've already announced Daniel Garcia from AEW, Ring of Honor World Champion Bandito, and independent wrestling standout Janaya Kai from the DC area here in United States.
With a name as like Terminus, is it you want to keep it in the area of Atlanta, or is it just the name where it comes from, and then it can, I don't know, span out to other regions on East Coast or even the whole states, or just
we haven't. Yeah, right now is something that we want Atlanta to be proud of.
Yeah.
Atlanta, the territory of Atlanta used to be a huge like wrestling hotbed back in the day. We got Center Stage here, the Omni, the different arenas around here that people used to run, the NWAs, the WCWs. Like, just Georgia has a rich history of wrestling, and I want that to return. I want Atlanta to be a hotbed for wrestling again. So I want people to hear the name Terminus and automatically think Atlanta.
When I hear that, then of course the question is directly in front of me. What was your first contact? Well, because you're from Atlanta, right? Are you directly Atlanta or like the surrounding area?
I grew up in pretty much downtown Atlanta. It's called Zone 3, Summer Hill area. So I was like maybe 8 minutes from downtown. It's very important to me that the inner city and just people understand that wrestling is around. It's so funny to me because I travel around the world, and oftentimes I'll take an Uber or a Lyft or something, and I have a conversation with the driver, and the driver will ask me why I'm in town, and I'll tell him, oh, I'm in town. We just did a wrestling show. And he'll say, oh, like amateur wrestling or like pro wrestling. And I'll say pro wrestling. And he'll freaking freak out. He's like, oh, I love pro wrestling. He's there telling me about all his favorite wrestlers. He's like, oh, where was it? And the thing is he's driving me, and he lives right down the street. And he does not know that pro wrestling was right down the street from him. So I really want to educate the Atlanta market and let them know that pro wrestling is here. And hopefully pro wrestling is here to stay via Terminus. And hopefully people can feel like they're a part of something. That is the goal for me.
So what was your first contact in Atlanta when you were a child or so with wrestling in this area? Was it per TV? Was it live wrestling? How did you get into the wrestling bug? How did you get the wrestling bug? That's the English I was looking for.
I used to hang out with my cousin Josh at his house, and he would always watch wrestling. I didn't know anything about wrestling at the time. I was probably 5 or 6. And I remember always being captivated by wrestling. It was WWE or WWF at the time and WCW. And we would always go back and forth and watch the two. And I didn't like either or more. I just enjoyed wrestling. I was my favorite wrestler at that time when I first started watching wrestling was Bam Bam Bigelow. And I just kept watching wrestling. And over time, I'm going to say maybe when I turned maybe like 10 or 11, I knew in my mind that I wanted to be a pro wrestler. But I was always scared to tell people. Later on, I was a real bad kid where I was getting put out of schools like a lot. I gotten put out of so many schools that my mom had to send me to a preparatory school, a school she had to pay for. So I got put out of all the public schools in my area to where I couldn't go anywhere anymore. It was either I go to private school or I had to go to juvenile, which is like children's prison, basically. When I got sent to preparatory school, I automatically got in a fight with the principal of the school. Like the first day, I was already trying to fight the guy. And of course, he jacked me up and put me up on the wall. And he said to me, you have a lot of spirit. You should join my wrestling team. And automatically, I heard wrestling. I was like, what? And so I got on the wrestling team, and I thought in my mind that this is the minor leagues of pro wrestling. So I had to become really good at amateur wrestling to become a pro wrestler. I never told anybody what my goal was. So because of I found my avenue to become a pro wrestler, I just stopped being a bad kid. I just concentrated on wrestling. So early on, I never got a chance. I was brought up inner city. My mom didn't have a lot of money. It was she was a single mom, so I didn't get a chance to go to the WWE shows when they came to town. I would ride my bike to the Omni or to Phillips Arena where they were, and I would hang out outside, hoping that I would see some wrestlers. Never happened, but I would always hang around the buildings whenever they came to town. So my first wrestling show was an independent show run by a dude named Rocky King. He was a wrestler back in like the NWA days. He wrestled with Flair a lot. And he held a small, very small show in the parking lot of a car dealership. And it was like me and like 3 other people walking around watching this show, but they were actually there to buy cars. I was there to see the wrestling. And then he introduced me to WWA 4, which is the school that I ended up going to, where I met my partner in Terminus, Black Baron. And we became friends there. But I never got a chance to see live wrestling as a kid. I always saw it on television. The first show that I saw was in that parking lot. That was the first time that I saw a professional wrestling ring like live in front of me. So I was just addicted from television, basically. But that's how I kind of got on the road to becoming a pro wrestler.
I can, I mean, now that you brought it up, like that first moment when you saw a wrestling ring for real the first time, that just gave me a little flashback when it happened to me in 2005. I remember that was a surreal moment. So that just put a smile on my face, because it also took me a while to get in touch with with a live wrestling event. So that's pretty cool. But to be quite honest, I was expecting you as somebody from Atlanta to be more on the WCW side of things, actually. So I'm surprised you were not picking a side.
Oh no, like at the time I wasn't educated. Like I didn't know much about independence. I didn't know anything about independence. I knew wrestling existed in like Mexico and Japan and stuff, but I didn't know how to get to it, you know? So when I got older, around 15, 16 years old, that's when I learned about wrestling schools, because the internet started to get really popular. And that's how I found Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor actually changed the course of my life, because I really didn't know what I was going to do. I knew I wanted to be a wrestler. I was already doing amateur wrestling. I found out about pro wrestling schools, which then like made me just realize I didn't have to do this amateur wrestling stuff anymore. All I had to do was get some money and pay for a school. So I found a school not too far from me, and I was just, still out there doing crazy stuff in the streets, being a weird kid, And then I found Ring of Honor in 2005, and I became obsessed. And I found Ring of Honor in 2004, and then I became obsessed, and I was like, that's where I want to go. And everything I did from that moment going forward was to get me to Ring of Honor. So yeah, I never became obsessed with WCW or WWF. I think it might be because the people on TV didn't resemble me. They didn't look like they came from where I came from. But when I watched Ring of Honor, and the setting was more intimate, it was smaller, I don't know, it felt like I could go like down the street to the rec center at YMCA and then go watch this show or go become a part of this show. So I was just so like inspired by Ring of Honor, the way it was presented as a sport, where I just had to become a part of it. So I did everything in my power to make it to Ring of Honor. So that's where it all started for me. No WCW.
But what you just said makes actually a lot of sense. So you said your first your first favorite was Bam Bam Bigelow, but what could you give us some other names that you looked up to, or was it just wrestling in general? Because like that's actually a question for myself that's also hard to answer when somebody asks like, okay, who's your favorite wrestler? Because there's just too many, and you're just, or like the way it was with me, I'm just gravitated to the whole thing.
Sports, yeah. This whole spectacle of pro wrestling was just so attractive to me that I was trying to figure out so many things. Like, I never thought it was fake, but I was just trying to figure it out, like everything about it. Like, it was so new to me. I didn't really understand it, and it kept evolving. It kept getting bigger during that time, that was when, like, I think when I first started seeing WWF was when the Nation of Domination was around. I believe it was around that time. And then as it graduated, like, WWE and, WCW kept getting bigger. The crowds kept getting bigger. The stage and lights kept changing. The characters were getting bigger. The promos and everything, like, everything was just getting bigger. So I kind of grew along with it, and my excitement and want to be a part of it grew as well. So it wasn't just one person in particular, like yourself. You were saying it was everybody. It was a whole spectacle of wrestling.
And yeah, I mean, when you said you really started getting into it when like 14, 15, after amateur wrestling a little bit, that must be like early 2000s. I think we're all the same age, roughly, plus minus. So it was like after WCW was gone and all those indie companies really had a room to just grow into, right? Like, when did Ring of Honor start? 2002 or something? I don't remember.
Yeah, 2002.
Yeah, so when did you start the wrestling training, and how long did it take till you took your first bookings and really started touring?
I found Ring of Honor in 2004, like late 2004, and then 2005 for my birthday. My birthday's in March, so my dad got me my birthday present was paying for my wrestling school. So I told him what I wanted to do, and by March, I was already enrolled in my wrestling school, and I debuted on the same show that was in that parking lot of the car dealership. I debuted on that same show against Heath Miller. He was in WWE for a very long time. He was my first ever match. I actually came up in the business with him early on. We traveled together and stuff when he was first starting. And so my first ever match was against Heath Miller in Douglasville, Georgia, March 5th, 2005. That's actually my wife's birthday, March 5th. So very easy for me to remember for multiple reasons now. So so I did that 2005. Really funny thing was I was just emulating and copying Rey Mysterio. That's all I was doing, because everybody told me that that's who I had to be. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to become Rey Mysterio. So I was wrestling just like him. After a while, everybody kept telling me, oh, you wrestle just like Rey Mysterio. So then I was like, okay, so that means I'm going to copy my next favorite guy. So at the time, I was really fond of Loki. He was, of course, Ring of Honor wrestler. So I started to squash Loki and Rey Mysterio together. And that's when it clicked to me that that's how you become a better wrestler. You emulate and you copy the guys that have been successful and that you admire. And you're going to copy one guy. You learn everything you possibly can about that one guy, the way he sells, the way he does his shines, his comebacks, everything. You learn as much as you can about him. And then once you've learned everything you can from that guy, you move on to the next person. And then once you do that, you squash them both together. And now you're starting to become who you're going to be for the rest of your career, because you have a good solid base because you've copied two great wrestlers. So now that I understood that, and now that I'm a trainer and I help, younger guys coming up, I encourage them to do the same thing. Pick your favorite wrestler and just become them. Do everything that they do. And then by 6 months later, you do that to another person. Now you're becoming who you're going to be for the rest of your career. So that's basically what I did early on to like start becoming me. But to wrap up this part, around 2006, I was around 2006 or 7, I think it was. I was wrestling for a show in Phoenix City, Alabama, and I was wrestling for them. It was one of my first shows outside of the wrestling school that I went to. So I was there for a little while, and I was always match number 1. One day I got up the courage to go to the promoter and ask him, hey man, I want to learn how to be a mid-card guy and hopefully, learn how to become like a main event guy. But the only way I can do that is I got to like not be the first match all the time. And he said to me, you're exactly where you're supposed to be, opening up the show hot. And, that's your place. That's where you're supposed to be. In my mind, I knew I wanted more. So I said, I got to get out of here. So that's when I started doing this thing that evidently people don't do anymore. Every time I had a match, I would record it and I would send out my resume to everywhere I wanted to work. I was very ambitious at the time, so I sent it from WWE all the way to, Ring of Honor. So I was sending my emails to Tiger Hattori. I found out who booked everything, and I just sent my resume to everyone every week that I had a match. I would do that. And funny thing is, Tiger Hattori remembered me because of it. Yuki from Big Japan remembered me because of it. So many people that I ran into later on in my career remember me because I sent out those annoying emails every fucking week. Later on, I ended up having dinner in 2011 with Tiger Hattori, and he brought it up. He was like, "Oh, you annoying email boy," and I was like, "Yeah, that's me." And then, at the time, I was like wrestling for Jersey All Pro and stuff like that. And I'm trying to think. There was one more. I actually got my first booking in Japan off of doing that too for DDT. One day, I got this email back randomly from Michael Nakazawa, and he was booking for Takagi, who was the owner of DDT. And they gave me my ticket and told me to come over in 2011. And I went over for about a week, I think. And I ended up rooming with Kenny Omega at the time, which was now it's so bizarre. But yeah, so that was basically the beginning of my career and how I kind of start moving out of the smaller independents, going to the bigger ones.
Yeah, also 2011 was the first time, as I see, when you went to WXW. How did that happen?
WXW, WXW was one of those companies I kept sending emails and stuff to as well. But I had gotten picked up. So there's this guy that works for Smart Mark Video. Well, he used to work for Smart Mark Video when they were like really big. It was when management was switching between John Zandig and DJ Hyde. So when that was switching, Smart Mark Video was like helping out with booking, I guess, or something. So this guy named Adam Lash randomly contacted me because our wrestling school, WWA4, we would hold weekly shows that we would record and put on YouTube. And after a while, it got kind of popular. It was me, Apollo Crews, AR Fox, Baron Black, these guys called the Hooligans. We were all training together all the time. So we were actually able to have pretty decent matches together at the time. So this dude, Adam Lash, was somebody that watched the shows religiously. And he contacted me one day. I was like, "Hey, how would you and AR Fox like to do CZW?" And I was like, "Well, fuck yeah. Like, let's do it." And that's how I got my first booking for CZW. I became a part of CZW's roster. And at the time, around 2008, I was already going to Europe and stuff in France from 2008 to 2009. I joined CZW 2010. I had already had a tour which was going to take me back to France again when they were planning their double header with WXW in Germany. And I asked DJ, I was like, "Hey man, I'm already going to be in Europe. Can you hook me up with the WXW stuff?" He was like, "Yeah, if you're already going to be there, then why not?" And I was like, "Yeah." So that was my first experience getting to work with WXW. Actually, I was already in France for FFCP. I think that's Mark Mercer's group. And from there, I got a chance to jump from France and go to Germany. And then after that, WXW just started using me regularly after that. So very grateful for that.
I just saw today a tweet from Tristan Archer, where he mentioned you. Was that where you met him for the first time too?
So yeah, I met Tristan Archer back. My first match ever in France was against Tristan Archer. We wrestled probably in front of the biggest crowd I wrestled in front of up until I started going to Japan. We wrestled in front of something like 12,000 people in France. It was huge. And we went out there, just had a good match, and we became friends. We were always on the road together because he was on the independents in France, and I was too at the time. So we were going to there was like 3 or 4 promotions that like ran shows during the week. So I was able to like wrestle maybe like 5-6 times during the week. And me and Tristan would like drive together all the time. So he was like my first friend that I met when I was in France. We've kept in contact all these years. So yeah, he's got some really like embarrassing photos of me looking really weird.
He's also a guy, I think, who in the I mean, he was always pretty good, but in the recent years, like he really Yeah, he really developed, and
He really came into his own.
yeah, absolutely.
After the Cruiserweight Classic, I think it kind of clicked, for him, because that's when I started noticing like a huge improvement was after the Cruiserweight Classic. He started to change his look up a little bit. He started to like incorporate different moves and like sequences, and yeah, man, he's really coming to his own. I'm really happy for him. Really happy for him.
I looked it up earlier on Cage Match. To be honest, the main research base we have here. You and Robert, you had how many matches? You guys think you had?
Not that
think
much.
3.
Yeah, 3 or 4.
Yeah, I think 3. Yeah, it's like I know it was like a tag match. I think 1 singles, but I think it was mostly tags.
You're completely right. It was 3 matches. 2 tag matches in 2012 with
Walter?
you and Skillet and Robert and Iso for some reason. Then
Really?
that's what I found. I don't know. It was like a 5.5 minute match, and
I don't remember that
end.
one.
No, then the later matches.
Oh, yes, I remember that one. I think it was the first time I did not properly catch somebody. I think you did a moonsault either from the apron or from the second rope to the outside, and I was a little bit short, or shorter than I expected it. That was, yeah, I remember that. That was, I think, the first shocking moment of, I think I will not be able to catch this guy. Sorry.
It was okay. Fucking, I don't do crazy stuff no more.
Yeah, like the other match one was a tag team match with Cerberus. And then it's just a singles match I have. Those are the 3 I found, at least. Those are the 3 that are on Cage Match. 2012, 2013, 2015. It's been a while, guys.
Okay.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
I mean, it just shows
both
how
of us have gotten so much better. So I'm pretty sure we'll probably meet at 16 karat.
Well, I hope so. Yeah, but it's crazy how time flies, actually, when you think about it. Because I can clearly remember the one we had at the Triangle League, the singles match. I can clearly remember that one, but everything else is kind of blurry. So So yeah, but I mean, I would not mind doing that again with today's
me too.
skill set. So why not?
And we want to take too much time because you said it already. You want to watch King Richard. I googled it. King Richard with your mom.
Yes.
And you said earlier that your goal was always to get to Ring of Honor. Like, when did this finally happen to you, to be there, part of the roster, part of the DNA of it?
Well, I got my first taste right after. It was either right after or before, I can't remember. I did that tour I told you about for DDT in Japan. So it was either before or after. And it's really weird because right before that, the same guy that I told you about, Adam Lash, that got me and AR Fox into CDW, he actually contacted me sometime later and asked me if I was interested in wrestling for Chikara. And so I was like, of course, why not? It was hot at the time. And I went there. And when I wrestled there, I did a 6-man against Pinky Sanchez, somebody else, I forget, and Delirious, who is the booker for Ring of Honor. So it was me, Amasis, and the other dude from Assyrian Portal. And we wrestled them, and I got a chance to do a lot of stuff with Hunter. And after that, I expressed like my interest in working for Ring of Honor, and he told me he'd get back with me. And maybe a couple of months later, he contacted me to do the Top Prospects tournament, the first one. I think Elgin won, I forget, but I ended up doing the Top Prospects tournament in 2011, and I wrestled against Kyle O'Reilly. I lost the match. After I lost the match, I went to the back and tried to find out if they were interested in bringing me back. And I kind of got the notion that I did okay, but I still wasn't ready to be there. So I continued to push forward, and I took it upon myself to just like say, screw it, I'm just going to move to Europe now and just wrestle as much as possible there. So I worked out a deal with WXW where I would appear all the time. And I think that's where Robert and I met, actually, is during that time of me moving to France and pretty much working full time for WXW. I was on all of their shows after that. So from the end of 2011 to 2012, going into 13, I was always wrestling for WXW, jumping back and forth, going to England and stuff. Fast forward to 2017, I had come back to America after, all the WXW stuff, all the 0-1 in Japan stuff. I came back in 2013. I told myself, okay, I need to really work on getting a job. So I contacted Hunter, and I was, back and forth doing spot shows for Ring of Honor, mostly dark matches. 2017, I was already with my wife. We were just dating at the time, not married or anything. But I was actually about to stop wrestling because I'd done everything I could possibly think of to make it to Ring of Honor. And my wife told me in 2016, she was like, well, look, you've done everything else. The only thing you haven't done was move domestically for a company. So I said, you know what? Okay, I've already moved to Europe. I lived in Japan for a little while to try to make things work. And so I was like, you know what? The only thing I haven't done was move to a different state for wrestling here in the United States. So I said, okay, babe, let's do it. So together we moved to Pennsylvania, as close as I could get to Ring of Honor. At the time, Ring of Honor's school was in some part of Pennsylvania. So I was pretty close, about an hour away. So at that time, I was able to kind of trail Ring of Honor. I let Chikara and CGW know that I was moving up. So I was on more shows more often. At that time, I was doing Beyond Wrestling too. So all that was happening. So 2017, after doing multiple spot shows for Ring of Honor, Hunter booked me in a match against him in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And we wrestled. After the match, he gave me probably one of the biggest compliments I've ever gotten from someone of his level. And then after that, he told me that he was going to make sure I got a contract. And about 2-3 weeks later, I received my contract via email, and I started wrestling full time for Ring of Honor in 2017. So I've been with them since 2017.
Just as a short clarification, Hunter is Delirious, right? Because
Yes.
I'm not sure if all of our European listeners are so familiar with the name. Like, I think they would associate something different, somebody different with the name Hunter. But
right.
One thing that I would like to briefly talk about, you wrestled under some alter egos throughout your career, right? Like in Chikara, you've also been Suicide in TNA for a couple of matches, as far as I remember, right?
Just so you know, a lot of these I don't like to talk about because I'm not really proud of them. But yeah, I'll answer the questions.
Okay, I'm sorry. But the question would be, like, what is your approach on stuff like this? Because like, there's a lot of guys out there who would maybe even deny a job if they cannot do it in like their own persona. Like, was that something?
Sure.
That you didn't really care about? Or you maybe was it more important to like get the foot into the door and maybe do a gimmick that you don't necessarily like or you don't see yourself in long term, but you still do it just to have the foot in the door and see what comes off of it? Or what was your approach?
I really wish I had the experience that I have now during that time, because I pretty much did those things. I did the Chikara gimmick. I did the Suicide and Impact only because I was asked to by upper management. I didn't want to, but I thought I would get heat or I would look ungrateful by saying no. But if I could have just been honest and transparent, I don't know what would happen, because like literally nothing came of me doing Suicide. Like, I got nothing for doing it. I got paid and that was it. To be honest, I don't even think I got paid for that, because like the way TNA operated at the time was, it depends on how many episodes you do. or I think it was like you get paid by day maybe. And it was like in that day I had done multiple episodes. So I gotten paid, let's say $1,000 to do fucking 3 matches at the time. So I didn't get paid again. So it's not like me doing Suicide, I got paid like a bunch of extra money or it was a great experience. Literally, they had this nice lady, one of the nicest ladies I've ever met, named Jolene, create a Suicide outfit specifically for me for that night. And she stayed up all night making it, like from scratch, bro. It was ridiculous for me to not even want to do it. Like I didn't want to do it at all, but they had her do it. So I felt obligated that, oh man, this nice lady is like creating an outfit just for me. You know, they're going through all of this stuff. Of course they had to pay her, I'm sure. So it's just like, okay, just do it, man. You don't want to, but just do it. I fucking hated it. Every moment of it, sweating in that mask, not being able to breathe, you know, the dude that was running the place at the time, I don't even know his name. I've never seen him before or after this, but he asked me to be Suicide and he wanted me to do Suicide. And I remember him saying, so I came out and I was doing all these like gunshots and all this stuff. So I remember coming back after like the practice entrance and he was like, well, can you do something else that doesn't signify death? And I was thinking to myself, wait a minute, the character's name is fucking Suicide, bro. Like, help me out. I didn't know what to do. I had no clue what to do, you know. So I remember just being really frustrated about that that time period because I thought I was, you know, experienced enough for Impact to be able to use me as I was. So I was very disappointed in that experience, I guess.
But a couple years later, you were the first Ring of Honor pure champion of the new era. Let's call it like this, like the first one after, I don't know how long it was gone. A long time, right? Like 10.
About 14 years, man.
Or even
2006. Yeah,
So
2006. He was retired in 2006 in Liverpool, I believe.
So how was that for you? Like, how was the process to going there, to getting this thing done, and you like putting everything in it?
Yeah, the story is kind of long. Since I've been at Ring of Honor, when I got signed in 2017, I was trying to find my footing and my place. You know, I had fallen in love with the company back in 2004 and 5 and 6. And when I finally got there in 2017, it wasn't the same company that I'd fallen in love with. And for some reason, I kind of ignored that. Like I noticed it, but it didn't really resonate with me at the time until I was signed and I got there and I was looking around at like the people I could wrestle, and stylistically everything had changed. So I was like, what is it missing? And I really thought about it. And I was like, wait a minute, pure wrestling. That's what I love. And that's what this company is missing. So anybody that would listen, I told them about it, whether it was Todd Sinclair, the referee, whether it was, Hunter, the promoter, the booker, or upper management, Greg. And, you know, sometimes I would get a chance to talk to Joe Koff. I would always bring up pure wrestling. It wasn't until Marty started to take over things that people really started to listen because, the Bucks had left and we were basically searching for an identity. And I remember Marty taking me aside in New Japan when we were over for the Super Juniors, and we just started to shoot the shit and just talk about wrestling. And he asked me this question. He goes, "Hey man, what are you planning? I mean, what is your idea of like making Ring of Honor different? How do we differentiate ourselves from everybody else?" He asked me, and I think Brody King was there too. We were all having a conversation, and I really went in on pure wrestling. I was thinking to myself that, in my mind, nobody else in this industry can do pure wrestling besides Ring of Honor because it originated here. It was born here in Ring of Honor. So I was thinking, when you watch a horror movie or a comedy, you watch certain actors for certain things, right? So if you want sport presentation, pure professional wrestling, you come to Ring of Honor. If you want, people dying and coming back to life, you watch Impact. If you want sports entertainment, you watch WWE, and so on and so on. So that was my pitch to Marty. Sometime later, a little bit before the Speaking Out movement, he sent me a, what do you call that? Not PDF, but PowerPoint presentation of what he was going to present to upper management about the new way of doing things. And it was basically what he and I had spoken about pure wrestling. And so I was like, please pitch it. And next thing I knew, the announcement of the Pure tournament happened. To be honest, man, I don't think a lot of people tell me not to say this, but I do believe it in my heart. I don't believe I would have gotten the run of Pure Champion if it wasn't for Marty, 2, if it wasn't for the pandemic happening. The lineup of the Pure tournament was like the who's who of pro wrestlers from around the world. We had Yuji Nagata in it. We had like some really top guys in the tournament. And at the time, I was tag team champions with Lethal. So I really didn't see that happening. I wasn't really concerned about it. I was more so happy that Pure Wrestling was coming back. But when the pandemic hit and everything had to be reset, a lot of the top players were pulled from the tournament because of, restrictions on travel. So, I think they were kind of worked into a corner, and they really didn't have anybody else to push or anybody that made sense to put as the Pure champion. So I think it kind of just worked out for me, where they decided that person would be me. So that's the way I think it went down. Upper management, the office probably thinks about it differently, but I think that's the way it kind of went down.
I mean, for it definitely was refreshing to see, and I would say out of the, like, if we want to call it the COVID wrestling year of 2020, like, to me it was one of the best products that any promotion actually put it out there. I enjoyed it a lot. I mean, I didn't watch it completely. I'm gonna be quite honest, but what I watched was like the majority of it, and I really enjoyed the systems, the rules, and the system, the rules, and all that. It was really cool.
So, Gresh, before we let you go to the movies, the last time we seen you in WXW was against Timothy Thatcher, right, with the Unified World Title match?
Yes, I think so. Mm-hmm.
It was it for Tech League? Oh God, it's all.
Yeah, it was a tournament show, I believe, because I was in between the tournament matches. I think it might have been Tag League.
I think it was Tag League, and I think when was it? 2017, 2018, something like that. No?
19.
Yeah, it was definitely
19.
Maybe 19.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing I want to say is we will see you soon again. Finally, I'm happy that you come back because you will be at 16 Carat next year, next spring.
Yes, I will be. I can't wait. I can't wait to have some more German steak from that restaurant we always go to after the shows.
Do you remember the adult DVD store that is on the corner next to Turbinenhalle? Because there's a sushi place now, but Robert said it's not good. Because
no, that's not true. That's not true. The sushi is good. The service is shit. But the sushi, the sushi they're serving is good.
Well, I'm looking forward to checking that out because I love sushi too.
Yeah, you know what the strange thing is? Like, when I was over in Japan a couple of times, I hated sushi back then, and I could never think about eating raw fish. And then, like, years later, I mean, basically, I could eat sushi every day. That's how much I love it.
It's one of those things. Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, I was just talking to my wife about it, where your taste buds kind of mature. You know, over time. I was like that with a lot of foods, man. A lot of foods. Yeah.
So one last thing, because before we really finally let you go to see that movie with your mom, we do have a community playlist. It's called blownup.fm. It's a Spotify playlist, and we do ask all of our guests if they want to put up a song on there. So my question to you would be: do you have anything that comes to mind? Any song that you want to add to our Blown Up FM playlist?
It's called Hypnotized by Purple Disco Machine. I really dig it. Whenever I'm in like a funky mood and I just want to like vibe out and just enjoy being by myself and like my puppies, I put on this song. It's called Hypnotized by Purple Disco Machine.
All right, that's gonna be it. I'll put it on there as soon as possible.
All right, cool.
So thank you very much for your time, Mr. Gresham. We didn't even have the time to talk about the puppies now that you mention it. So everybody who listens to this, if you want great puppy content on Instagram or I don't know, on social media, follow Mr. Gresham there. Oh, there they are. So for everybody listening, yeah, everybody's listening is missing out on them. Oh my God, there they are.
Hold on, Mom. I'll be right there. So this is the laser that I always play with them. They get crazy. So hopefully they do it now. Hey, y'all ready?
So this is wonderful.
All right, Gresh, thank you very, very much for your time. It was a pleasure to have you on. Looking forward to finally see you again in March for 16 Carat, and of course, we wish you all the best with your new project, Terminus. Hopefully, the first show and the following shows will be a huge success, and you can, reach your goals for making wrestling a big thing again in the Atlanta area.
Well, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me, and I look forward to seeing you guys in Germany.